Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. My guest this week is Mike Szymanski. Mike is the head waterfowl biologist for Game and Fish. Mike, you folks are finishing up a winter waterfowl study.
That's right, Tom. We participate in the coordinated Mid-winter Waterfowl Survey that occurs all over the United States, parts of Canada, and when the time is right, parts of Mexico also. It's one of the longest running wildlife surveys in the world. It's been conducted since 1935.
Let me ask you this. In North Dakota, why in the dead of winter?
Well, it's part of this coordinated effort. You want to do it when other people are doing it at the same time. We try to all do it during the first week of January. It's a little harder for Texas. Texas has a little more area to cover. They've got 4 or 5 airplanes running for about 10 days to complete their midwinter waterfowl survey. So the main point is to try to get it to all line up at about the same time in the winter. And part of it too is the midwinter survey serves a very good purpose in providing population status for a few species that we really can't count during the summer. And a really good example of that's tundra swans.
Oh, what do you use the data for that you collect during the midwinter survey?
A lot of it is basic distribution information, especially as it pertains to our constituents. Our hunting constituency really wants to know where birds are ending up throughout the winter time, and this gives us a really good look at where those birds are. But like I said, for some species, we don't get a very good look at them during their breeding period or reproductive period. So for tundra swans, brant geese, which we really don't get in North Dakota, it's one of the few ways that you can really estimate their abundance. And then for other species like snow geese, it gives a good look at their population size. We're starting to use other ways of getting at that, but other ways of assessing their recruitment too.
I would guess they would be fairly easy to count, as the birds that are still here are fairly restricted as to where they can hang out.
For us in North Dakota, it's pretty easy. And by and large, the Midwinter Waterfowl Survey isn't what's called like a stratified survey where there's transects that you have to follow. You basically go where the birds are. So for us in North Dakota, it's really easy, right? I mean, how much open water do we have in the state? This year it was a little bit of an expanded effort because Lake Sakakawea had a lot of open water on it, so we did have to get an extra plane out to fly the lake this year.
And that begs another question. You use airplanes for this survey, right?
It's a combined effort actually between airplanes and ground survey efforts. In far-flung parts of the state where we have little patches of open water here and there, we do have folks from the Fish and Wildlife Service and our Game and Fish field staff go out and check out these places that they know are around and might be holding a few birds. They go and check them from the ground. The river and lake we have to survey from the air. We have to do aerial estimates on that.
It's been a pretty mild winter so far, and I know some winters we've got upwards of 150 to 200,000 geese and mallards hanging out on the river. Some years not so much. Mild winter so far. How are we faring?
We look like we're going to have one of our higher counts. We don't have all the numbers in from everywhere. We're still actually doing the survey this week, so we've completed a river and lake count. We've got very high numbers in those two areas, and that's probably going to be 95% of the birds counted. But yeah, it's going to be one of our higher counts for sure. As everybody knows, we've been in a pretty strong El Nino pattern, and there's not much ice out there, to the chagrin of ice fishermen.
Right. Some years, though, it doesn't seem like the cold makes that much difference. It's the snow depths, right?
Yeah, I mean, the cold matters a little bit. If you have really long sustained periods of very cold temperatures, that will affect the birds' willingness to stick around. But really, yeah, what you're saying with the snow cover is true, because if they don't have access to food, then they're out of here right away. And if you get past that kind of 10-inch range on the ground, it starts to get a little bit more difficult for birds to find food out in fields. There's not going to be as many hilltops that are blown clear, things like that. So it's been pretty good conditions for holding birds this year, that's for sure.
As long as we're talking about waterfowl, this may sound silly, but we're a month to a month and a half away from another goose season.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, as we always say, it's technically not a season, but a conservation order. But when people talk about it, yeah, it's a season, you know, for them.
Some people might not know what we're talking about. Of course, the spring conservation
season. The spring light goose conservation order. We'll probably be opening that date. We still have to go through the proclamation process and everything, so the date hasn't been finalized, but probably something like February 20th. We'll be looking at opening that. Just, you know, we don't have a restriction on the number of days that are available, so we just open it, you know, early.
Just to make sure the season's open.
Just in case there were a handful of snow geese on the river, not many, like a dozen or something like that, but you never know when you could have a batch of 1,000 show up here or there, and someone might want to get at them. So
these are all geese that are coming from the other direction too.
Right. They'll be coming up from the south, most likely.
All right, Mike, thanks.
You bet.
If you're interested in signing up for a hunter education class, now is the time to enroll. You can find a class near you on the Game and Fish website at gf.nd.gov. There is a list of available courses, where they're located, and the dates they're offered. Course space is limited and they fill up fast, so if you plan to take the course this winter, enroll now. For Mike Szymanski and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.